What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. We've got another reality check for you. We're talking about Alabama and if they could possibly win the national championship again in 2021 and also have a Heisman Trophy in Tuscaloosa again in 2021. Now, it's very tough to go back-to-back when we're talking about national championships, especially in college football. You go through the playoff era, Alabama has not done it. We haven't seen a back-to-back national champion in the playoff era, and Alabama's only done it once under Nick Saban. So to talk about this team and all that they lost going undefeated, winning a national championship, I should say again, you wouldn't think that it's super likely, but we're going to talk about how likely it might be. So here's the comment that sparked this video from Cole Talks Football. I believe he is an Alabama fan. Alabama repeats as champs with a Heisman winning season from Bryce Young. So we're going to talk specifically about Bryce Young winning the Heisman Trophy and Alabama winning the national championship. So we're going to start here with the first part of this. Alabama repeats as champs. Could they win a national championship again this year? I'm going to say that there's a chance that this could happen. Absolutely. We're talking about one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the country this year, and there's no reason to think that they're going to drop off. You could say, well, they lose Mac Jones, they lose Najee Harris, they lose Devontae Smith, they lose all these players. They lose these players every year, and they always come back, and they're right back in the playoff conversation every single year. Also, I don't see a team this year that has kind of separated themselves. When we're talking about who could win the national championship, there are maybe 4 teams, maybe 5, that I think have a chance to win a national championship, but there's not really much separation between these teams. So there's no reason to think that Alabama couldn't win a national championship, and there's no team that's just kind of in their way. And it's where you're saying, well, Alabama's going to be really good, but I don't think they're going to be good enough to beat this team. There's really not a team like that. And we're talking about a team that is going to be really good on defense, one of the better defenses that I think they've had in a long time. When you look at everything coming back there, I mean, they have really loaded up on defense. The depth is there. I think they can sustain some injuries, which have kind of slowed them down in the past. So the defense is going to be really good. And then you look at the offensive side of the ball, they still have plenty of weapons. Bryce Young has been lighting it up in practice. Now, he hasn't done it in a big-time game yet at this level, so we have to wait and see. But assuming he is at least, maybe not great, but at least good at the quarterback spot, they've got so much talent around him where this team is going to be a good offensively. But there are question marks, absolutely. Bill O'Brien taking over this offense, what's that going to look like? They do have to replace some really talented players. So to assume that Alabama is going to do it again, I don't think that you can do that. I think they have a shot, but I don't think you can just assume that they're going to win a national championship this year. So this is the meter that we use, the reality meter. And if you don't know what this is, just go back and watch the video that we did on it. Kind of went in depth and talked about what we're doing here. And it's not necessarily a percentage thing, and that's what I wanted to kind of separate. We're not saying if it's a 1, there's a 10% chance it happens, a 2, a 20% chance. That's not what this is. Don't think about percentages or anything like that. Think about the words here on the meter. This is kind of how we're just basically saying, how optimistic should you be? Should you get your hopes up? Should you not get your hopes up? Just giving you a reality check on maybe something that simply is not going to happen, or maybe we agree with it, and maybe other people don't agree with it, but I think that it is going to happen, things like that. So where does this land on the reality meter? I'm going to say I feel pretty good about it. I'm going to put it at a 7. Now, I wouldn't say there's a really good chance because, again, you've got other teams that are going to be right there, but they're going to be in that conversation just like they are every single year. And so if I'm an Alabama fan, I probably feel pretty good every year. I think it's above you can get your hopes up. You can feel pretty good. You can feel like, yeah, we've got a really good shot to win the national championship again this year. There's really no reason not to be optimistic. So I think Alabama, again, winning a national championship, that's going to be at about a 7 here on the reality meter. So let's go to the next part of this. A Heisman winning season from Bryce Young. Could this happen? Well, if Alabama is in the conversation for the college football playoff, or they make it to the college football playoff, whatever, and this is a top 4 or 5 team like we expect them to be, and he has a really good year, he is going to be in that Heisman conversation. I mean, he would be the quarterback for one of the top teams in the country, so of course he's going to be in that conversation. And would they give it to to a freshman. Now, they've done it before, so that could happen. But when you look at the talent that's out there this year and the other quarterbacks, if it comes down to a Spencer Rattler or a DJ Uiagalelei or a Bryce Young, and they're all very similar, their teams are very similar, I think they're going to kind of go in favor of a more veteran guy. So I think that does work against him a little bit, being a freshman. You also don't have the talent at wide receiver that Alabama had last year. You don't have Devontae Smith. You don't have Jalen Waddle. I think having some younger guys that you got to build chemistry with is going to maybe make this passing attack not be as prolific, especially early in the season. I think they maybe lean on the run game a little bit more. So I don't know that his numbers are really going to be there and compared to maybe some of the other quarterbacks like Spencer Rattler, maybe a Sam Howell. It's going to be tough. But again, he's going to be in that conversation just because Alabama should be really good. And if he's efficient, he puts up good numbers on one of the best teams in the country. If he's a quarterback, yeah, he's going to be in that conversation. But I'm going to put this at a 5. I'm going to say you can be cautiously optimistic. I wouldn't get my hopes up. I definitely wouldn't bet on him winning the Heisman this year. But there is reason for some optimism, again, for the reasons I just mentioned. So I'm going to say you can be cautiously optimistic, but I wouldn't really get my hopes up if I'm hoping for Bryce Young to win a Heisman Trophy this year. So how about the entire thing here? Alabama repeats as champs with a Heisman winning season from Bryce Young. What are the odds, or how much of a reality is it that Alabama could do both of these things? Get another national championship and a Heisman Trophy. I mentioned earlier how it is very tough to win back-to-back national championships. It's very, very hard. Even if the talent is there, just the hunger that you've got to have, there's just something about chasing a championship where you get a little bit complacent, and I'm sure Nick Saban is better at this than any other coach in college football. But that team last year was really, really hungry. They wanted it really, really bad after a disappointing year the season before, and it really all starts in those off-season workouts. So if that sense of urgency is not there in the same way this off-season, then it's going to make it a little bit tougher. I know those are little things. You think about what does the spring have to do with winning a national championship, but it does have an effect. And I'm not saying that Alabama has not worked hard and all of that. I'm just saying it's maybe not at the same level that it was last year, especially when you have a lot of younger players on that offense. Really, they have a lot of young guys. So I again don't see them being they're one of the favorites, but I don't see them being a clear favorite to win the national championship. And I think Bryce Young is pretty far down the list for the Heisman. But if they are in that conversation to make the college football playoff and all of that, and they're really good, and Bryce Young's really good, that's going to kind of go together. And so there's a chance that it could happen. I'm going to put it at a 4. Again, don't get your hopes up. Just under the cautiously optimistic. It could happen. It wouldn't take anything crazy happening, but I wouldn't get my hopes up. I wouldn't really expect that to happen. Again, it's unlikely that both of those things would happen. Just getting one of the two things would be big. So that's where I'm going to put this one. Number 4, don't get your hopes up for Alabama to repeat as national champions and also a Heisman winning season from Bryce Young.